my name is Barbara Nissman, and I am speaking to you from my music studio here in beautiful Greenbrier County, West Virginia. And how I wish we could all be together in the concert hall, and hopefully that day will happen soon. But in the meantime, I thought it would be fun to introduce you to another one of my composer friends and take you behind the notes of his music. And I am speaking today about the composer Robert Schumann, who was a pianist, a composer, a conductor, a writer, a music critic, and a very big influence on the musical life in 19th century Germany. He started a music journal and he launched a few careers. I mean, the comment he made about Chopin, hats off, gentlemen, and genius, really launched Chopin's career before he got to Paris. And then when the young Johannes Brahms came to visit Schumann and his wife Clara, the famous pianist, the next day after hearing Brahms' music, Schumann penned an article that launched the career of Johannes Brahms. And he left us with a wonderful legacy for the piano. Also wrote a number of symphonies and chamber music, and left us with a lot of beautiful songs. And I thought it would be fun to start the program with one of his most beautiful songs, the Widmung, meaning dedication, which he dedicated as a wedding present to his wife, Clara. And it was based on poetry, of course, and the lyrics are, "You are my soul, you are my heart, you are my joy." It's a real love song. Now, I don't intend to sing this for you, oh, heaven forbid, but Liszt did transcribe Schumann's song, and I think Liszt even featured it many times in his own concerts. It's a real beauty, a real love song, which you will hear. love song. What a great wedding present, right? But you can hear the passion, the emotion, the intensity. Now let me tell you a bit about Robert Schumann. He came from a very artistic family. His father was a writer, a translator, and later on a bookseller. And his mother was an amateur singer, so he grew up surrounded by music and art, and it really was his passion. But after his father's death, his mother made the decision that he should do something practical with his life, and she advised him to pursue his legal studies. This sounds familiar, you know, my son the lawyer instead of my son the musician. But anyway, that did not last very long because he missed music, and he made the decision that he would go to the most prominent piano professor at the time in Germany, Friedrich Wieck, who was the father of Clara Wieck, who was the most famous prodigy virtuoso, getting accolades all over Europe. And Wieck said to Robert, give me 2 years and I can make you into a pianist. Now, the trouble with that was that Robert worked very obsessively. He overdid his studies. In fact, well, let me explain something to you. When you look at your hand, you know, not all the fingers have the equal strength. You know, the second and third finger are much stronger than the fourth finger, but Robert set out to change that. He was going to make the fourth finger just as strong as the other fingers, and he did this using a contraption, a mechanical contraption, where he attached pulleys to the finger in an effort to strengthen the muscles. And unfortunately, what happened was that he crippled his hand, meaning the career of the concert pianist was over. But he overdid everything. And I think it was during this period that he wrote his toccata for the piano, which he called the hardest piece ever written, and I would tend to agree with him. But he probably overdid the practicing and did not help his finger muscles at all, because really, basically, we don't really have to build muscles. We just use what we have and accommodate the fingers. But let me have a go at this toccata, because it's really such a wonderful piece. A toccata it's a perpetual motion piece, and this rhythm keeps going from the first note of the piece right to the end. And you will also see how difficult it is, but I will have a go at it. understand why Robert probably obsessively practiced that piece. That's what pianists have to do to play this piece. But I thought you should have a rough idea of what he probably hurt his hands doing. Now, to come back to Robert and his piano studies, he knew Clara when she was a young girl, but of course when he started his studies with Frederick Wieck, she was older, and she fell in love with Robert, and he fell in love with her, and they decided to marry, but she was not yet of legal age and needed permission from her father, who of course did not want her to stop her career as a touring virtuoso. He liked the money that was coming in, and of course Robert, in his mind, was a very unsuitable choice for his daughter Clara. And they went through the court system because he would not give permission, and the battle dragged on, and finally the courts gave permission exactly one day before she turned the legal age that was possible to marry. But in the meantime, Robert was forbidden to see Clara when all this was going on. So they would pass secret messages. He would send her manuscript of his new work where there would be a theme with her initials in it. And I'd like to play for you just a few pages of his Fantasy in C major. This is one of his masterworks. But it was written during this period when he was forbidden to see her. And in these first 2 pages, you will really hear his anguish, his torment, his passion. It's really a beautiful testimony to this deep love that they had. Also, the Fantasy was written for another purpose. It was written during the time when Liszt was trying to raise money for the Beethoven Monument, and Schumann contributed this piece. But listen to the emotions in the opening bars of the Fantasy. All that passion that came pouring out in this music. And they eventually married, of course, one day before she legally became of age, and Clara gave Robert 7 children, continued her touring, but Robert was beset with mental problems. In fact, there were a few suicide attempts, and finally he admitted himself to the insane asylum because he was afraid of hurting Clara and the children. And doctors have diagnosed Schumann's condition as probably being a result of a bipolar disorder, actually schizophrenia. And you hear the manic energy in his music. You hear the inner turmoil, the anguisch. And I've chosen for you to play one of his sonatas, the second sonata in G minor, because it's a wonderful vehicle for you to hear exactly what I'm talking about. And I remember when I was a student, I was studying this, all of the piano students laughed about the first movement because Schumann indicates as the tempo as fast as possible. And then towards the end of that first movement, he'll say faster, and then he'll say still faster. So you'll hear this rhythmic energy throughout this sonata, especially in the first movement. And Schumann uses a lot of syncopations. These are accents off the beat. And you will hear that as well. And what that does is it really propels the energy. It increases the excitement. And so let me give you a rough idea of this first movement. I thought it would be better to go movement by movement. Usually I would play it, nonstop so you could hear these wonderful contrasts. But I think this is a better way to proceed. So here is that first movement. As fast as possible. actually, Schumann was a man of extremes, and that extreme lyricism and that driving manic energy. And then he gives us the most beautiful slow movement as a contrast. And he based this movement on one of his melodies from his songs. And you'll hear again the depth of emotion. You'll hear the pain as well. See what I mean? Schumann always opens his heart and reveals everything to us. And very intense music, isn't it? And then he gives us a scherzo to follow, and it's not like the joking scherzos, say Mozart or even Beethoven. It's also very intense. But he's being a bit more lighthearted, and this is how it goes. Now, Clara was really Schumann's muse, and all of Schumann's piano music was written for Clara to perform, and she performed all of his music actually everywhere she played, and spread the word about Schumann as a composer. Actually, she did the same thing for Brahms as well later on. Now, he wrote this sonata for Clara, obviously, but she was not happy with the finale, and she made him changes. So she had her hand in what Robert was doing, and actually after Robert's death, Clara was the one responsible for editing his music, and I think she changed a few things here and there. Actually, she's notorious for that within his music. But you'll hear the finale is very virtuosic. It's also in a rondo form, which means you'll hear that opening theme. It'll keep coming back. It's like a patchwork quilt. It alternates with some other material, but you keep coming back to that. So you'll definitely recognize that theme. And the very end, he gives you an elaborate cadenza because she was a real performer. She wanted to make her mark, and she probably played this phenomenally well. It's too bad we don't have recordings of Clara playing this. So here's the chosen finale that Clara wanted him to write. have a rough version of Schumann's Second Sonata in G minor. So much feeling, right? Intensity. Actually, he runs the gamut of emotion. He feels everything so deeply, and unfortunately, that's what killed him in a sense. But I didn't want to leave you on this manic high. Actually, I'd like to talk to you about another contribution Schumann made. He wrote these wonderful character pieces. They're little musical gems, and I think the most well-known of his set of character pieces are his scenes from childhood. And these are not children's pieces. These are more an adult looking back with nostalgia and a bit of sadness at the innocence of the child. And I've chosen for you the most famous in the program with his Traumerei, meaning dreaming, and I think you'll recognize this when you hear it. But you'll also hear the deep soul that Schumann had. So this is for you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share the music of this wonderful composer with you. And we do need more music in our lives these days, don't we? So try and listen to some of Schumann's wonderful symphonies and his wonderful song cycles, the Dichterliebe, if you like Lieder, and hopefully I'll be able to share with you more of his piano music, maybe one day on the concert stage. I hope so. But in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep listening to lots of wonderful music. It's good for the heart and soul. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.